Welcome to this Black Panther Wakanda Forever Easter egg video. I had no idea what to expect considering the struggles this movie has had, and I was a bit gutted that we will no longer see Chadwick Boseman as the Black Panther. However, I am pleased to say that they did a great job with this movie, all things considered, and I absolutely adored Namor and Riri Williams here. I wasn't a fan of Riri's comic book version, that's just me, but I'm glad to say that they made a great adaptation here. So let's chat comic and MCU Easter eggs in Wakanda Forever. First up is the Wakandan Outreach Lab. This program was set up at the end of Black Panther to help share tech across the world. I feel we missed some important diplomacy, setting up the friction between Wakanda and the rest of the world, and we're left to pretty much fill in the blanks here ourselves. We see a character played by the actress Lake Bell on the ship looking for vibranium. This is remarkably similar to Namor's first appearance in motion picture Funny Weekly, where his father was part of an expedition to recover vibranium that was found and lost by the famous explorer Ernest Shackleton. Briefly on the news, we get a cool Ant-Man Easter egg. In the ticker, we see how Scott Lang is touring his new book, Look Out for the Little Guy. This was actually in the D23 trailer, but cut for the general release trailer of Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. Now, sadly, when Ramonda dies, we see the details of this on the news as poor old Everett Ross is arrested. Now, on this, we also have a ticker where a new treaty is mentioned happening in New Asgard, connecting over to Thor Love and Thunder. Less said about that movie, the absolute better. Now, interestingly, Shuri has an AI, and this may be a reach, but please do stick with me here. We saw Shuri map Vision's mind in Infinity War, and of course, Vision was like kind of part Ultron, part Tony's Jarvis AI. It's possible here that she took the AI that was a retooled Jarvis, and heck, it's even got that yellow sort of like Soul Stone look to it as well, and has that visualizer similar to when Jarvis and Ultron talk to each other in Age of Ultron. The voice of this AI is also Trevor Noah, who you may know from The Daily Show. I haven't really watched it ever since Jon Stewart left. Now, Okoye has a hard run this movie, but she gets some really cool armour at the end, and Shuri dubs it the Midnight Angel, which is the name of the same wet work group from the Dora Milaje that was formed and shown in Doom War number 5, and went on to also be featured heavily in the Ta-Nehisi Coates run. I hope I've pronounced that name correctly, which, check it out, that is a good run. You may have seen a shell or conch that Namor had in the movie. Again, it might be a reach, but it did remind me of the horn of Proteus that Namor uses to control the seas in the comics. Now, the MacGuffin of this movie is the vibranium detector machine, and was made, well, at least designed, by Riri Williams. She was introduced in Invincible Iron Man Volume 3, number 7. Just like the comics, she is an MIT student, and in the comics she's originally from Chicago, which is why there's like Illinois state flags, or Chicago. I don't know, I'm not from America. In that, she stole parts to make an Iron Man suit and escaped when confronted by campus security. This is remarkably similar to what happens here, except she's off campus and she's being arrested by the FBI with Okoye and Shuri. Of course, this also mirrors Tony's escape from the cave and her first flight going far too high, like Tony's did when he made that upgraded Mark 1. Now, I'm unsure if I like her suit at the end, but if you look at the blueprint she made for her own Mark 1 in Wakanda, it looks a lot more like the Model 1 or Model 2 Ironheart suit. We also see the return of Val, who, I'm sorry, I'm a Julia Louis-Dreyfus simp. Veep and Seinfeld are two of my favourite shows of all time, but we here learn that she's now the new director of the CIA and would formerly marry to Everett Ross. Oh my god, what a lucky man. As we know, Ross is a keen ally of Wakanda. Again, maybe a reach here, but Val refers to him as the Wakandan expert, as top military brass mentioned destabilizing Wakanda and an invasion. Now, we did see an invasion of Wakanda in the What If show, which is pretty cool, but this might be referring to the storyline in Black Panther Volume 4, issues 4 to 6, where America wanted to invade Wakanda. Of course, we meet Namor, who is changed heavily from the King of Atlantis to the King of Talokan. I really like this change, it works very well. We learn his people wanted to escape the conquistadors who were invading this area. Now this is curious, as in Eternals we saw the same warriors invade and slaughter people in Tenochtitlan. I'm sorry, I've probably butchered that again. Now there was a 50-year difference between Namor's flashback and Eternals, with Eternals being earlier, but it's a cool thing to note. We learn that he got his powers from a similar heart-shaped herb, but this grew underwater. That's probably why his people, when they took it, could not breathe on land. He could, and he mentions that he was a mutant. In the comics, he was informed of his mutant status by Professor X, and so far we have Kamala as the other mutant in the MCU. He is flanked by Attuma and Namora. Now, interestingly, in the comics, Attuma was part of a banished group of Atlanteans, and while Namor was away, Attuma would play by managing to take control of Atlantis, but was defeated, with Namor supposedly being weak in some people's eyes for surrendering to Wakanda. I expect we could see Attuma attempt to take over. We also saw Namora, who is the cousin of Namor, and her name meant avenging daughter, while Namor is avenging son in the comics. Her stories are inconsistent, with many gaps between her stories, and I want to see more of her. She's kind of underserved here. Now, Namor's crusade plays out differently here than in the comics. In the comics, he did attack Wakanda with a gigantic wave like in the movie, but this was during the events of Avengers vs. X-Men. He had part of the Phoenix Force in him and was furious that Wakanda was harbouring a prisoner of war from his side. Shuri would become the ruler of Wakanda after a brief death of T'Challa and go on to attack Atlantis in revenge for this. Now, Okoye mentions Thanos when speaking to Neke, of course. Thanos, as you know, attacked Wakanda with his forces. Shuri mentions how T'Challa kept his illness a secret, which somewhat mirrors the tragic illness Chadwick Boseman had which wasn't public knowledge, and to many of us it became a surprise. I mentioned how in the comics, Shuri became Black Panther, and this is rather similar to how it played out in the comics. In the comics, she wasn't allowed to be, or wasn't granted the power by the Panther God, as she was disrespectful and only wanted powers for, power's sake. Here, she wanted to get revenge, and that's it. She wasn't really spiritual and only looked to the tech, and this is pretty much similar here. And she only really got her true power when she decided that revenge would lead to more bloodshed, and you could hear a mother say, "Show them who you are," which is what was said in the first movie. When she got her powers at first, we saw her punch a mannequin, which is just what T'Challa did when he was testing out the new suits of the Black Panther. Another nice detail is how a suit has a gold detail on it. While deep down she summoned Killmonger, he also had the gold detailed suit that T'Challa skipped over. During the final fight, Namor says Imperious Rex, which is the battle cry of Namor from the comics and is his most famous line, of course. But that is it for this video. Let me know if there's any that I missed down below, and I might make a part 2. Do drop a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe with notifications on if you want more from us, and I'll see you soon, and goodbye.